The modern world that we live in today is a place of ambition. We all want to be the best. We all want to be millionaires. We all want to be the best influencers and celebrities that we can. We want to be the best at our jobs and the best at sports. But what if I told you guys that the statistical likelihood of making it to all of these things is next to zero? Now, I've said before, I don't necessarily like statistics because they are not necessarily a reflection of the individual's possibilities, but at the same time, they do give us some reflection. And what success means for you is going to be different to what it means for me. But I think to describe this best, we're going to have to look at something that we can all understand, a binary option. We're going to be looking at money. And yeah, money is not the best example for everybody's success. Not everybody wants to become super rich. But at the same time, it's the easiest metric to measure. Whether someone's hitting their gym goals or their spiritual aims, that's not so straightforward. Money is. So we're going to use money and then extrapolate these results in a way that I'm about to explain. So I've had a look, I've researched it, you guys can back me up at this if it's correct or wrong, but it seems to be the case that looking at the statistics, your chances of becoming just a millionaire, having a net worth of over $1 million, which is worth less than £1 million, is only 1.5%. So what that means is, out of the entire global population of how many billion people, only 1.5% of these people are going to be millionaires. And that's dollar millionaires versus pounds or any other currency. So right away, your chance is very low of becoming a millionaire, one measure of success. However, this is not necessarily the most accurate representation of the truth. Because, unfortunately, there are a lot of poor countries out there, a lot of much poorer countries. And depending on where you are, is going to have a massive influence on your ability to make it in this field. For the same goal of becoming a millionaire, in the UK, your chances are not 1.5%, but over 4%, so significantly more than double of the global average. If you're in the US, your chances basically double again, and it's near to 9% now. So what that means is, if you're in a place where wealth is already concentrated, it's much easier to accumulate that wealth, and that obviously makes sense. I mean, as much as people might like to complain about the cost of living crisis in the UK, the US, and other developed countries, the truth is, we do still live in a world of absolute excellence. Think about all the privileges that we have in today's world. If you're around money, it's easy to attract it. You have a market where you can basically take some of that for yourself. Whereas in certain poor countries, that's less likely to be the case. Anyway, taking that out of the equation for a second and focusing back on the topic for today's video, this proves a very important point. Now, of course, we already knew location is going to be a big influence on what you can achieve. People may not like to admit this, but it is true. And that's why I think finding the best place in the world to meet your goals is very important. But generally speaking, it's going to be a lot more difficult to achieve if you're in a rather poor country that's war-torn than if you're in a very rich first world country. You're not going to have the same ability to resources, perhaps even learning, obviously not to money as well, and even security, which is all going to have an influence on what you can do. But let's just keep it now local, because I want to make this a video that a lot of you guys can relate to. I want to make it a video that I can relate to, and I want to explain what my point is in this episode. So, focusing on the UK, the US, France, and all of these European countries, which, again, UK, US, Canada, and a lot of Europe have similar statistics on the money front. So if your chances of making it financially are around, between, let's say, 3 and 5%, depending on which part of this world you're in, or this part of the world you're in, that means a few things. It means, number one, the likelihood of you making it is near to zero. It's a lot closer to zero than it even is to 10%. It means that there's roughly 4 to 5 millionaires in the UK for every 100 people, right? Only 4 to 5. So you have to be one of these people. You've got a 4 or 5 in 100 chance of making it. And the same is going to be true. There's a reason why they call everything the top 1%. You know, you're the top 1% of this or that. It's because it's a very, very difficult thing. But people don't reflect on what that actually means. If you're the top 1%, it means that for every 100 people, you're the one that makes it, right? You're the 1%. Now, when focusing on our dreams, this is actually very, very important to acknowledge straight away. Because what this unfortunately means is that the chances of you making your dreams happen, no matter what front it is, the chances of you becoming the 1%, even the 2%, the 5%, is next to zero. it's very, very close to none. You've got a very, very limited chance of making anything on this front for yourself. And for every person who tries, for every person who makes it rather, there is 100 or 99 who don't. This is not necessarily a video telling you guys to give up on your dreams. I do not encourage that at all. I think when you make it, the feeling that you have is something that you can't experience in any other way. At the same time though, this is an important lesson. Because I know a lot of you guys say things like, one day I'm going to have a Lamborghini, or one day I'm going to have a business that does this, or I'm going to hit my goals in the gym one day. Well, the statistical likelihood, the factual likelihood is, you're probably not. The likelihood that you're going to make it is literally, if we're using the money example, between 3 and 5% at best. At best. What this means is that everything needs to be taken with a degree of absolute seriousness. And I can't emphasize this enough. Because we have a lot of people, like I say, who say that these things are coming. I'm going to get this car, I'm going to get this job. For every job that you want, there's going to be a large number of people competing, and there's only one position open. Every time you want to get that car, lots of other people want it, and you need enough money to afford it. Even going down to the basic things, the friends that you want, the girl that you want in your life. All of these things, the chances of you making it is very, very low. How do we then move forwards after realizing this? Well, there's two things that we need to do. Number one is not give up. And this is probably the most important thing. People might say, well, my chance of making it's nothing, so I'm going to just stop. I don't agree with that at all. I'll use a money example. I want to start and run a business that is very, very profitable. Right now I've got a few going on, but I'm trying to get to that $1 million level, that £1 million level, right? Am I going to give up on running my business because the numbers don't crunch? No, I'm not. I'm absolutely not. I'm going to carry on. It's working so far, and I think I can make it. At the same time, I am going to put measures in place to have the most successful life that I can. So, what does that mean? It means that for me, whilst running a business is the aim goal, I am going to have reserves in savings. I am going to have investments in other fields that pay passive income. I'm going to diversify my income streams. I'm going to make myself as employable as possible, even if I don't have a job at the time or don't want a job at the time. I need to have the ability to say I've got this, this, and this, which makes me very employable in the occasion or the event anything goes wrong. Again, I need to have savings to back myself up. I need to have investments that pay me, as many as possible, so that my life can be subsidized by my own investments, and money that comes in through the business. That's great. It's an extra bonus. And again, if you have a job at the same time, win-win. Yes, you lose a bit of time, but at the same time, there is a point here. The point is, people say, well, that sounds difficult. How do I work full-time and run a business? Or how do I do this whilst doing that? How do I go to the gym 3 days a week whilst working full-time? This is what I'm trying to say, right? And I need to make this very, very clear. The world is set up in a way, just looking at the numbers alone, where you are not meant to do this. You are not meant to make it. The chances of you becoming the 1%, like I say, the 1%, the 10%, the 5% is extremely slim. So you are not supposed to make it. What that means is you need to place an extra emphasis on making sure that you do. You cannot miss any opportunities. It's too late for that. You need to do what you need to do straight away. That may mean going to the gym after work. It may mean building a business on the side after work. And I never said it was going to be pleasant. I'm realizing this in my own journey, right? I'm building a business, and it's very, very likely now that this year I'm going to see revenues in my business of over 100k. So what that would mean is a 6-figure business at age 21. Great. But at the same time, the amount of work that's had to go into that, the amount of stress that has to go into that is very, very difficult. And there will probably become a point, or would become a point, where even a lot of you guys who were on the same path and it was working out for you, you would likely still quit. And that's not me saying, oh, I'm amazing or anything like that. I'm simply trying to make this point. And my point is this. The world is set up in a way that's difficult for your average person to succeed. Very difficult for your average person to succeed. And what that means is you need to put an extra emphasis on making sure that every move on the board goes towards your growth. Every move. You can't fail on this, because if you fail, the statistics or the facts, and I don't necessarily even like to focus on statistics, but the reality of it is the world will not hesitate to put you in the 99%. It's very, very likely that you'll be, in fact, no, it's more likely statistically, and I know I've said before I don't like statistics, I don't, but we need a measurable source for this video, right? It's more likely that you will die poor than you will rich. And that is a shocking statistic for everybody to realize. And as I said just a few minutes ago, point 1 is realizing that you can still make it, but point 2 is realizing that you shouldn't give up and you need to have a backup plan also. For example, using the money example because it is the easiest one to quantify. Don't quit your job until you have passive income or other income streams that match your living expenses on top of your business, I would say. Maybe that's investing in property. Maybe it's taking the plunge of moving somewhere cheaper so that you can spend more time on your business and have less expenses. I'm not trying to say what it's going to be, but here is the big point here. The likelihood of you making it in anything that you try is next to nothing. And a lot of people will use it as their motivation to quit. That's not my intention. This is your motivation to make it, because when you get there, you are going to be the 1%. You're the one who made it. But at the same time, that means that everything needs to be very, very calculated, because you're playing a game where every move on the board is set up to see you fail. The game is not intended to watch you win. You're intended to lose, you're intended to fail, and the likelihood of you making it is very, very slim. This is not the excuse for not doing it. This is the reason for pushing harder. This is the reason for making sure it's you, not them. But it's also the reason for starting, making actionable steps today. Because the average life expectancy is between 70 and 80. Some places a little bit less, some places a little bit more. But at the same point, that's not very long. You don't have infinite time to make this. Everything you want is finite. The time that you have is finite. And it needs to be spent well to achieve anything that you want. I know I use the example of money in this video, but that's not my intention. It could be anything, like I say, anything at all. But being the best in that field, in that practice, in that market is still equally, sometimes even more unlikely. Sometimes even more. Because really, let's use places like the UK. To become a millionaire is not incredibly difficult, especially not over the past 50 years. If you'd have bought a house in the 70s, 80s, it'd have probably appreciated to $1 million by now. Congratulations, you're a millionaire. $1 million's not that large in the grand scale of the world. And I know it sounds like one of those things, well, it's easy to say that. I don't have $1 million. I'd like to have $1 million. But on the grand scale of the world, that's only the tip of the iceberg. And this just proves how difficult it is to be successful at anything, and why you need to get on it straight away.